I love your home already, and I haven't even seen it. Does that sound crazy? It's not. When we improve our surroundings, we simultaneously empower ourselves, which means every inch of space within your reach right now is an opportunity to tell the story you want to be living. Tell me that's not its own kind of wonderful. I have spent the last 15 years consulting clients and their homes through the wisdom of Feng Shui, intentional design, and some crystal clear communication. And you know what happens when you bring those three together? Life-changing magic. Your home is already in a conversation with you, so why not learn how to merge that awareness with some simple, straightforward, and smart action to co-create the life you want? I'm Amanda Gibby Peters, and I'm here to help you learn how. Welcome to House Therapy. Here's something I get asked about a lot on other podcasts. Are Feng Shui and design kinda, sorta, totally the same thing? And the short answer is no. And if I'm being totally honest, Feng Shui is typically the less glamorous of the two. Feng Shui suggestions will often require the kind of change or even work people don't ooh and ah over. There's no guarantee you'll immediately have something to show for your investment, whether that's your time, money, or effort involved. And if Feng Shui is part of a home renovation conversation, it can often be sidelined to make the design process more convenient. So a huge part of what I do when having a conversation about Feng Shui or consulting a client is to first help them see their home as the soil. It is an ecosystem where you are growing your life in a sense. And if the soil isn't healthy, it doesn't much matter what you plant, the ecosystem is still off. And off presents differently for everyone. So within minutes of being in a client's home, I can usually point out all the things that they've got working in their favor beautifully. Every home has its highlights that way. Yours does too, I promise. You just might not know them or be maximizing their advantages. Likewise, a home also sometimes supports a challenge a client wants removed from their everyday story or experience. And that's where Shui is so different in its capabilities from design. Even though design conjures feelings and emotions, it often hovers over aesthetics, right? Feng Shui is more interested in how you feel in a space, how you experience your life in this ecosystem, and it is not necessarily aesthetic dependent. For example, some of those features of a home that designers or trends obsess over are cause for concern for Feng Shui practitioners, especially if our clients are showing the wear and tear or even the potential of problem from that feature. So how about a story to help illustrate exactly what I mean? Several years ago, a couple hired me as they were about to renovate their home. They were making this big investment and wanted to ensure that correct Feng Shui principles were built into the new design. When we met, though, I noticed several priorities needing immediate attention, problems that were really outweighing everything else. First, their house was located incredibly close to the road, and the front door basically opened to the curb. Now, as a side note, this seemed to be a common feature on the whole street. When a house is this close to the road, it's not uncommon to feel a lot of wins when you first move in, but over time, you start noticing that winning streak rarely lasts. Another splinter I noticed was the home was along a steeply sloped street. This feature suggests opportunities have to work really hard to reach you. I mean, think about driving your car or even pedaling a bike up an inclined road, and you immediately sense the extra effort it requires, right? Well, what makes this even more challenging is that once opportunity gets to you, it can be tricky to hold on to before it rolls away. So the slope is creating challenges for you both ways. Combined with the front door's proximity to the road, I knew immediately there had to be professional and even interpersonal frustrations. And sure enough, within a few hours of conversation with my clients, those details were confirmed. Once I was inside, I noticed an entire wall of the home was ceiling to floor windows, a feature that both designers and Shui practitioners love. Let me say that again. Feng Shui practitioners love breathtaking views too. But unlike design, we also carry a cautionary sense of the challenges they can present. You see, windows are your home's eyes, taking in all the energy around it. I often think of them as energy portals. During the day, this access helps us feel motivated and energized. However, without window panels or treatments to close the eyes, this long-term 24/7 exposure will eventually leave us exhausted. And over time, that low-grade and unexplained exhaustion has a way of badgering the moods and temperaments of those living there. Now, the clients acknowledged all of these challenges. However, as the design process evolved, these priorities shifted away, and the shui steadily became something we'll consider a fix after the design is complete. And I get it. The satisfaction of spending your money on something that everyone can see, something that elicits those oohs and ahs, is way more fun. Never mind that simply getting a space done is highly intoxicating. But here is the polarization between Feng Shui and design. When we sidestep Feng Shui, the energetic chaos that exists remains. Pretty, polished, damn near perfect cannot fix the influence of those features alone. So, what happened with this couple? Their home was beautifully designed, and they were elated with the outcome. And still, those problems that felt prominent during our first visit were only sedated momentarily by the big reveal of the renovation. And the complications and frustrations only escalated. So when they reached out several months later, I reminded them of the opportunity to adjust the features of the sloping street, the door meets curb, and the wall of windows so that they could get some reprieve. Now, unfortunately, I never heard back from them, and you might be surprised to hear this happens a lot because, again, I think when we're new to Feng Shui, we want something to show for it. It is hard to dedicate resources to something that feels more practical and less gorgeous. And listen, Feng Shui isn't design. Like, you'd rather say, look at my brand new living room than, hey, look at the uplights we had installed around the house. It's why I love asking, you think you know Feng Shui, but do you? Because design is primarily aesthetically driven, and Feng Shui is rooted in the experience that you are having within your home, within that ecosystem. The good news, though, is that Feng Shui has no expiration date. So when those clients revisit those remedies, they have all the right moves to bring some balm and relief their way. And on that note, I want to talk about when I would arm wrestle you, that shui should come first. Because another question I get asked often is, do people tend to choose design over Feng Shui? And the answer is yes, especially when it comes to these three scenarios. So, scenario one, maximizing space instead of assuming command position. So, first things first, what is command? In Feng Shui, it is the preferred arrangement for a bed in the bedroom, a desk in the office, and a stove in the kitchen. And the most immediate way to describe this arrangement is think of a mafia boss. He's usually tucked in the back of the room, not in direct line with the door. He's got his back to the wall, like it's protecting him, and he's able to easily see anyone coming into the space. That is command, and it matters most in the kitchen, which represents your health and wealth, the bedroom, which symbolizes your relationship with others as well as how you treat yourself, and the office, where the energy of opportunity and prosperity percolate. Now, to make the concept of command in this discussion easy-ish to follow along, we're going to consider command in your office, and we assume that power position with the desk. So here's a super common situation. Let's say I've got a client who's trying to get the most square footage out of their home office. The temptation, even inclination, is to put the desk up against the wall. Well, when we sit with our back to the door or our view of the door is compromised, here's what's really happening for the sake of that extra space. Our subconscious hovers on high alert instinctually, whether we want it to or not, watching for any potential surprises or threats. Again, we're wired this way, so it is not a conscious effort, it just happens. Meanwhile, if the point of Feng Shui is ultimately to shore up as much positive chi possible so that we live a long, happy life, a drip, 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 on guard watch every day is not shoring up chi, it's actually leaking it. So consider command a way of managing and nourishing your nervous system while being out of command compromises it. The other reason command is so important, open space in front of you, means that there is room to gather, seize, take advantage of auspicious chi heading your way, as well as the ability to quickly respond to any challenges approaching. So think about some of the things that we might hear people say about work. Whoa, that came out of nowhere. Why are my employees talking about me behind my back? Didn't have enough time to respond, and I guess they decided to move on. Why do I keep hitting a wall on this project? How did I not see that? And yet, office spaces continue to be configured to maximize space. Now, in office buildings and cubicles, you don't have much say, and I've included a blog post link in the show notes with ideas for making the most of that setup. But if you have an office at home, let me just say this. My clients who've moved out of command due to a redesign of their spaces almost every single time are calling me, not their designers, within months, complaining about so many things suddenly seeming to go wrong. And almost every single time, I am either there helping them or virtually encouraging them to put their desk back in command. And guess what? The turbulence calms, so take it straight from the expert, and oh my, the stories I could tell you, command really does matter. Now, one more quick note before we move on from this scenario. Sometimes I get notes from people saying, hey, I tried command, didn't really care for it, and I'm not sure it really mattered that much. So if I haven't said it before, let me say it now. I am not here to convince anyone of anything, but what I really hear nestled in those replies is, I don't know if I am ready for that level of visibility, responsibility, or power yet. Think about it. Being in command does put you in a position to take control, meet things head on, make eye contact immediately. So it's not that command isn't for you necessarily. It might just be you are putting yourself out there in a brand new way, and that is going to feel uncomfortable at first. Okay, let's hop, skip, and jump now into scenario 2, favoring an exclusively monochromatic palette. Listen, I get it. Monochromatic is design gold. It looks beautiful. It gives off tranquility vibes, and it keeps things simple. And still, I gotta say it, color is a big deal. While it doesn't have to be maximalist or evangelical, color needs to be present in your surroundings somehow. And here's why. Color is an actual biological need because we are hardwired to sense abundance in its presence. Let me say that again. We are wired to see color as abundance, which means a lack of color suggests scarcity. I highly recommend the book Joyful if you want to learn why, and I've included its link in the show notes too. Now, in the absence of color, we, without consciously realizing it, slip into fear. And over time, there's that drip, drip, drip effect again of our chi leaking away instead of it being contained and revitalized. I have my opinions about why office spaces tend to be so neutral, and this is one. If color encourages abundance, that could translate into an abundance of ideas too, right? And most places prefer productivity over creativity. But without color, then it's left to employees to muster up the stamina to keep going because color also instructs how we feel and it influences our moods. For instance, lighter colors tend to energize us and darker colors quiet us down. And the nature of each color can be worked with deliberately too. So like if you feel like branching out, a spring green is going to really channel that energetic boost for you. Want to woo a few golden opportunities your way? Try yellow. Do you need to grab attention? Red is really hard to resist. When we favor monochromatic rooms without color, we are left without their vibrational fluency, literally, which can leave us feeling like nothing is ever changing. And without this liveliness in our surroundings, it falls on us to channel the energy necessary to grow, change, produce, and thrive. So instead of relying on your powers of persuasion exclusively, maybe let color pull some joy and vitality to the surface for you. All right, finally, scenario 3, letting the builder, architect, or even a designer dictate the purpose of a room. Now, in my consultations, most often this is a dining room or a guest room. There it sits. And no matter how well this space is designed, thread counts, high-end labels, a completely clutter-free zone all aside, if your chi is not in the mix, that room's chi is flatlining. And that is impacting the energetic potential of your home. Being in our space is more important than having a beautiful, curated one that sits unused. Because when we don't utilize a room in our home, there are 2 things happening. Let's say that you've actually shuied other parts of your home. If you have what I call, quote unquote, a drought room, one that gets no attention on the regular, it is speed bumping all that high flying chi you've curated everywhere else. The other buzzkill, you miss out on that space's unique energy offerings in your home. Every room and every part of your home has an energetic persuasion. So if it's a room that sits quiet, still, lonely, that area of your life is probably not relishing the way it could be. So I tell the story often of a client in Japan who had a guest room, and he was wanting to trigger new possibilities in his career, but with the limited space of his home, he really couldn't see how to claim some space and create a home office to make that happen. So I asked him, how often is your guest room being used during the year for out-of-town company? And his response is still the highest answer I've ever heard, probably 100 nights. And still, we did some quick math and it left us with a room that was purposeless for 265 days every year. So we discussed finding a fold-out bed alternative and turning the guest room into his office. And within days of this small renovation, opportunities were cropping up everywhere and new contracts that really delighted him were being presented. So much so, in fact, that he left me this note. I have to say that in every capacity, Amanda is amazing. While living here in Japan, I saw her consultations for Feng Shui, and I was very curious about getting some advice for my apartment. I was a little skeptical because a lot of the advice she has is for big American homes, and I live in a small space. With her guidance, though, I was able to make my space into a home. I can recommend Amanda to someone living in any kind of space in any country around the world. Please let her help you as much as she has helped me. Jason Riley, thank you. I love you. And I know you are still kicking asphalt and taking names. Your takeaway here, a room designed out of obligation is oftentimes a room rarely used. So find a reason to use yours. All right. So your assignment from this episode, assume command if and where you can. Add some pops of color if your home is thirsty for them. And give a lonely room a new purpose in your life. Listen, Feng Shui is a form of self-care, and it can absolutely play well with your design preferences and process to create the home of your dreams. But even better, once you have a better understanding of what it all means, you're curating a room or your home in a way that naturally and sometimes almost effortlessly has you living in a way that consistently feels better than you thought possible. And that's our episode, my loves. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to head over to simpleshui.com if you're craving a bigger serving of house love. And if you like what you're hearing, I hope you follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you love what you're learning, will you leave me a review? Your note will totally make my day and help even more people find the show. Have a fabulous day, and I can't wait to meet you back here next week.